Thank you for joining me on my forest spirit build. The hanging moss accent ball I got from Michael's, and then the sticks and a lot of the bark and stuff I did get from my backyard. And then the Kodama, which are the little tree spirits, I purchased online. I did try to sculpt them originally with not like the best outcome. So I ended up going with these little guys and I love them. As you can see here, I do a little bit of sanding on, there's some seam lines and I trimmed it off. Here's my XPS foam and I'm just using some scraps that I had, and I decided to build a rocky outcropping, and I'm going to cover that in moss and paint that, a different color. Use my wood glue here to get everything glued together. And then while I'm waiting for this to dry, I get one of my tree branches. It's like the perfect size to fit inside the mossy hanging ball. And then I want to use some air dry clay here. I want to build up the base so it looks like an actual tree base with roots and everything. So of course I start off with tin foil, and then I use my air dry clay. And essentially all I really try to do is make it so it can stand alone, which it does end up working really well. I do have to add quite a bit of water to this clay. It's a little bit older, so it has kind of dried out. But I just kept blending it into the stick, and it came out pretty awesome. Like, I really like the effect on this. And then I add little pieces to make tree roots, so it's a little bit more realistic of the base of a tree. And here you can see I'm just working everything in. I wanted to give it some texture so it wasn't just, my fingerprints and that kind of stuff. So I used another tree branch to roll on texture, and it worked amazing, worked quite well. And between that and the tin foil, it was a really stable base. While I was letting that dry, I did some more carving into the rocky outcropping. I didn't quite wait for the glue to dry long enough at this point, but I just was so excited about this, so I continued to make little areas for the Kodama to sit and to make it a little bit more visually interesting. I also had to kind of carve it down. And throughout this process, I did set these items inside of the sphere just to make sure that everything would fit properly. And then here you can see I'm placing the little figurines, making sure that several of them will fit on the rocky outcropping. And then I put their little footprints in the base of the tree so then I can add one in later. This here is a nice floral wire, and it's covered with the floral tape, and it's got these little, it's supposed to be flowers, and I just wanted to add some more visual interest so it wasn't just a branch and it comes out more like a tree. And it worked really well. Here I'm using some more scraps of my XPS foam. My idea was to make little shells and then have the little guys sitting on the outside as well, but spoiler alert, I did not do that. Here I'm doing some painting of the XPS foam. I'm using a black primer, and then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna add my green to it, and this made like the best mossy muddy color. I quite liked it, and I got everything painted pretty thoroughly, and because it was also the black is more of a primer, it had really good coverage, so that worked really well. And then I go ahead and paint the air dry clay as well, this same green color, because essentially most everything is going to be covered with different types of moss and maybe a little bit of sand, and I'm going to do some dry brushing to give it some dimension, but I did want it kind of a darker base color, and so that worked really well. I used the same green, and I went ahead and colored all the little pieces from the floral wire because I didn't want anything super bright at this point. I wanted to go all with the greens and make it like a really magical, mossy forest scene. This is bark from my tree out back, and I was playing around to see what I wanted to do with it. I knew I wanted to add moss to it and have some little bit more visual interest and a little bit of crowding going on inside the sphere. But I'm not quite sure at this point what I was going to do with it. So I go forward with my moss and I just start using my tacky glue, and I'm going to glue it essentially like all different places. And I think I have this really pretty green moss, which I got from Michael's, and it's quite soft, and I really like that. And then I also have various colors and textures of moss that I use, and they're from different projects. So here you see I have two different types. I have some more of a grass and then some more of a moss. And I'm going to go ahead and use some tacky glue, and then I'm going to use my adhesive spray as well. And I'm just going to go to town and getting everything covered. Here, I kind of skip forward a little bit. As you can see, I've got different pieces of moss like all over the place here. I have already glued in the tree, and then here I'm placing the kind of the rocky outcropping. I did use E6000 for this. I had to use something pretty secure. And then I have my little flowers, and I cut them down to miniature size. Seems to work really well. It's really coming together at this point. I got very excited. I decided to use some hot glue and get the little figurines glued in there. And then I wanted to kind of build up around it and get some more decoration going on in there. Trying out different, I'm setting different ones in there, trying to find the most perfect little forest spirit to go in the front, and he's adorable. This was quite a fun build. I kind of didn't really plan anything out, and I had a vision in my mind, and I was like, I'm just gonna go for it. And I am quite happy with how this turned out. I am still looking for like a really nice S hook and chain as well to hang this up with. Okay, so here I'm doing a couple pieces of the bark, and I'm gonna, as you can see, I already have glue on there. And this I'm gonna use a little bit more of the modeling grass, and this one has little brown rocks in it as well, which just gives it a little bit of texture, which was really nice. But then I also try to add that green moss to everything, so everything looks like it belongs in the same area. This container of different grasses and moss is something that I have had forever, and I love it so much. It's lasted quite a long time. And then when I get little bags of moss from different modeling kits, I go ahead and toss them in there as I need to store it. I think on this little piece of bark, I threw quite a few things that had just fallen out. But when it's put inside of the sphere, it blends in quite well. All right, here I'm actually doing some hot glue. Getting the little guys put in. I'm getting the bark pieces put in. I decide to use all of my figurines, and I end up placing several facing out along the outside edge of the sphere, and it's so cute. I'll try to get a shot of that if I can as well. I just find these little tree spirits quite creepy and adorable all at the same time. I also love that they glow in the dark. It's pretty fun. It's a pretty fun effect. Oh, here I'm doing a close-up. Here you can see the flowers and my different flower placements. And then I'm at this point, I'm decided I need something a little more, and I had bought these little wooden pieces from Hobby Lobby, and when I saw them, I immediately wanted them as little tiny mushrooms, and so that's what I'm gonna paint at this point. And they do turn out quite adorable. So for my base color on the mushrooms, I use a brown, and then I use a nice red for the tops. I also use a little bit of orange to kind of give it a little bit depth and dimension. And then I do a little bit of dry brushing, and later on I do add a lighter off-white cream color to the little base of the mushrooms, on like the stem of the mushroom is what I should say. And that seemed to work out quite well. For the little mushroom spots on top, I went with a traditional little red with white spots. It helps them stand out quite a lot from the green. And then I end up doing a couple different colors. I think I do one that is a little bit more on the pink side, and then one that's a little bit more on the orange side. I'm using my dotting tool. It comes in very handy for the little small details. And then using the blue tape, and I use that to hold everything down while I'm painting the tiny little items. Because if you try to hold it in your fingers, it just doesn't go well. Here I'm removing them with my tweezers onto the bark so I can look and see how they're gonna work. One other detail that I did do is I added some orange spots to the floral wire flowers to give them a little bit of dimension. Here I've already placed them in, and I've glued them, and I'm pretty much finished at this point. Thank you for watching.